Good morning, and good morning. Here we are again. Here it is Thursday. I think it's the 10th already of September. I tell you. Or is it the 11th? I'm not quite sure. I think it's the 10th. But anyway, good morning. Good morning. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a good rest last night. Um, I did. I did. I slept well. I ended up getting my presentation for today done early. Usually I'm at 11 o'clock hour because I'm doing some other work, but I did get this done about, well, it was early for me. It's about 9:30. But I just say good morning. Hope you're having a wonderful day, or at least it started well. And so today we're going to talk about a book. Not any book. It's your book. Your personal account of your life. And sometimes we leave others up to that. Even when we leave this world, I've watched it where people scramble to write down something about the people that have gone on, have passed away. And so it's troublesome to me, and I just helped with that recently. So it's troublesome to me that we don't write our own stories. In fact, I recently, have been all into watching Hamilton. And Hamilton, the play, which I wish I had seen in person because it looks like it was just absolutely wonderful, deals with that whole issue of who lives, and some of the words in there: who lives, who dies, who tells your story. And it says that you should tell your own story. And so there's another part in the play that speaks to: you write as if you don't have enough time. And really and truthfully, we never know our time. Good morning, Joan. We don't know how much time we have here. We do not know it. But on the other hand, even though we don't know it, we are living our stories every day. Every day we're involved in certain things. We're doing certain things. We're laughing. We're in puzzlement. We may be crying. We may be anguished. We may be angry. We may be so many things. So to tell our story is to tell about our ups and downs, and that may help somebody else. But it also leaves a path for your legacy. What is your legacy? What do you leave behind? Some people just may have what they call scattered pieces of your life, but you can write your own story and tell it the way you want it told. People can add to it, but they can't take away from what you left, especially if you leave the story that you really lived. Especially if you lived with hurt, if you lived with heartache, or you lived with great love, or you lived with, personal shame, or whatever it was that you went through. Basically, those things help other people either live their lives, or at least they take from it what they will. They take from it what they will, and they use it for their good, or for just their understanding of personal growth. Even if it's not that they do the same things, but what they learned from you, maybe certainly putting them in the position of things not to do or things to try doing more of. But I just thought that was just such a great way. I'm always talking about, taking notes and writing down things that may basically say that, you know, um, you're a quiet poet, or you're a great literary writer, or you're, a writer of mystery, a writer of love, a writer of whatever it is, self help. But all of these things really speak to your book, your story, no one else's story but yours. And so this morning I decided I was going to go back, and I like some of our classic poet personalities from, the 1800s, 1700s, and even 1900s. I like them all. Good morning, Maurice. I like everyone that can tell a story. And it can be their story. It can be their story. So here's the excitement about what. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Miss Green. How are you? Welcome, welcome. So, anyway, we're first going to talk a little bit about, before we get on to the portion of the book that we're discussing today, your book, we're going to do the poem from Emily Dickinson. And it says, "There is no frigate," and you know, frigate is a boat, "like a book." It says, "There is no frigate like a book to take us lands away, nor any cursors like a page of prancing poetry. This Travis may be the poorest take without oppress of toll. How frugal is the chariot that bears the human soul." Basically, books transform us. They can transfer us. They can help us travel. Good morning, Rhonda, my niece. They can help us travel. They can help us go wherever we want to go, unbeknownst to us until we read the book. You know, the book is going to transfer our vision, transfer our view, transfer our attitude. There's so many things that happen in books. Not only do you learn about what was taking place um, based on the story that is being told, but also where how it makes you feel. You know, I used to tell everybody that I when I lived in Italy, I wrote everything that Mario Puzo wrote. Okay, the Sicilian, and then you know this. I had to have it. I had to have it. Okay, one of my favorite poets, good. Emily Dickinson was today's. Well, and I have another one too. But the irony of living is the creativity of a story. The fact that you live says that you had a life, and you're having your life, doing it your way. But guess what? It may help someone else learn the life that they are living, and how it could be equally as important to others who read their story. And so to me, I don't want to wait till I'm gone to write a story. You know, I'm writing my story every day. Even if I'm helping someone else create a story for themselves, that's part of my story. Because the story says, even though it's not my story, I'm the author of the story. And so that's how you look at going forward. The fact is that the creativity of who you are can be put on paper, can be put on recording. You can record it and then have it transcribed. Because I'll tell you a little secret. I found a transcription service. Now, when I started with them, they were only 10 cents a minute. But then something happened to them, and I guess they're starting to do business because people discovered them, and they went up to 25 cents a minute. So to go up to 150% kind of ticked me off. But I still had to do one more. You know, I had to do one more transcription because it was lengthy. So sometimes, you know, when you're interviewing people, or even when you're interviewing yourself and you want to capture it, there are those kinds of what I say resources out there that can capture your story. They'll print out everything you said. They'll print out everything you said, and then you can take that information and start creating your book around the information you've already gathered about yourself. So think about it. If you've been, good morning, Cassandra. But if you've been about this for a while, and you've been with me, I started this in April, and say from April to now, good morning, T, and you have all this opportunity where you've been writing down things that I'm talking about every day, you already probably have a half a year's book information on what it is, how it made you feel, where it took you to, how you were transformed, how you realized that you needed to back up, or you needed to stand still and listen more about who you are versus who others may think you are. And that's what I'm saying about that story that we leave behind. The story we leave behind is something that some people may have conjured up because they only have bits and pieces of the story. If you write your own story, then guess what? It's your story. No one else can say anything about it because it's your story. It is your story. So I have another poem here all about looking at life using the book or whatever format you want to put it in, but it is your story. And this is by W.B. Yeats, or Yeats, Yeats, Yeats. It says, "When you are old. When you are old and gray and full of sleep, and nodding by the fire, take down this book. and slowly read, and dream of the soft look your eyes had once, and of their shadows deep. How many loved your moments of glad grace, and loved your beauty with love false or true, but one man loved the pilgrim soul in you, and loved the sorrows of your changing face. Now, this says that the book that you live your life in, as you were young, you had a gleam in your eyes, you had things going on, you were excited, you were moving, you were happy, you were gay, all those things went on. But as life progressed, you changed. But then if you've written it down in your book, then people can see what you used to be and still love the transition that you've arrived at now. It says in the changing face, we will change. We will change. Eventually the wrinkles will come, the gray hairs will come, unless you do like me and go get it braided all up in there, and then nobody quite knows how many grays you have. But you can do your own thing. You can live your life based on your own recollection, your own way of living, your own story. No one else has to do your story but you. So, as I said, sometimes when you're working with people at the end of their lives and you see them trying to talk with you and tell you all the things that they wanted or some of the things that they did, collectively they did a lot. Collectively they experienced a great deal of things that touch on their emotions, their heartaches. They'll tell you about their greatest loves. I know my mother on her the year before she died, she told me that she was ready to go. And I said, go where? She said, I'm ready to go be with Johnny. And Johnny was my dad. And I said, oh, okay, mommy. And she said, I'm ready to go. And the reason by me saying that, thank you, Tommy. Hi, sweetie. The reason I'm thinking about that is because not am I only ready to go, but I'm also remembering the love that he showed me, the kindness that he dealt me every day. And she said, and he always made me special. I was a queen. And see, when you've known that kind of love and you can write about it, some women haven't known that, so they may long for it. But wouldn't it be wonderful to have it where somebody could read about that kind of love, where a man is just totally given to whatever his wife desires, even though it's simple. My mom said, I never really wanted much. But Johnny always made sure I had more than I even wanted, more than I probably needed, but it was always so appreciated. To me, I didn't know that about my parents. I didn't. So to hear her talk about it, was a good thing. Because, when you're young, you don't pay attention to the fact that your parents did all the things that you are going to do or are doing as a young person. So, when they get old, you don't even see them in the light of being in love, making love, any of that. You don't see that stuff. You say, what in the world if you don't get up? But as life goes on, everybody had a former life, a midlife, and a senior life, if they're given that opportunity to live those length of years. So, if my mother lived to almost 95 years old, she had some stories. And I have some of them captured of what she told me. Others I will never know. I would just never know it. But the exciting thing is that I know something, And so for my mother, I did put her obituary together. But my mother had done everything else. All her arrangements were made, everything else, all details were done. So only thing she left to me, and she said that she felt I was capable of doing it, of just writing her story. But how about us? Why would we not consider writing our story now that somebody could glean from and be able to put together what I would say is an obituary? In fact, I was speaking to someone yesterday, a good friend, and what we were talking about is like, a lot of times people put together what they piecemeal on an obituary. Could you imagine having an obituary that you created yourself? You created it. You decided what needed to go in there. You prioritized the importance of family, of friends, of projects that you did, jobs you worked, loves you had, all of those things. Could you imagine? It would be good. it would be good. So anyway, here we go. So anyway, today's subject is book. And I know you probably said, this thing is always talking about a book. Well, it doesn't have to be a book that, makes it onto any platform such as, bestseller, Amazon, KDP, any of that. I'm not asking for that. Not asking for that at all. I'm just talking about an account of what it is that you do that should be left as part of your legacy, that maybe your kids could read, to know that not only were you a good person, but you were a kind person, you were a loving person, and you did these things to show it. Maybe you gave to the poor, or you offered somebody, an opportunity to work on some things they were having difficulty with, and you helped them. To me, those things are noteworthy. They're noteworthy. And no, we don't do things for thanks, public thanks. A lot of times we get self gratification when we help somebody. And so the fact that somebody could say, and she helped me, and she did this, and she did that, those are add ons. But what could you put down in your own story? And it says, Joan says, I have written some of my mother's stories. Wonderful. Put them in collectively into a, your mother's book, or your mother's book told by a daughter, a loving daughter, who not only captured them, but can add to the story on what I will leave for my children and my children's children. It's just wonderful when we think how, when we go back through our own history, we have trouble sometimes finding the way we, especially some of us who might have been immigrants to America, or who might, or any other country, or who were placed in slavery, indenturement, or something, that your name somehow was distorted, or you couldn't even end up finding your information anymore, and or the name changed by one letter, or it was just spelled totally different depending of the person who was taking down the census. Just think of that. Like, you're leaving a history which is much more easy to follow than the history of some of our ancestors. We can't, I can go back to maybe 1860, 1870, but then it started getting mixed up because some of the names were spelled wrong, because the person that was doing the census, which might have been in the Bible, can't necessarily, that was the book back then. That's how we were, where the births weren't in a hospital, records, or at the, the statistics office for the state. Not noted like that, but we have an opportunity to do better, because we have more resources available to us. We have computers, we have, our own handwriting, whatever, and we can use that as a way to leave history so that history is known. But anyway, when we talk about a book, it says it is a printed work, consists of pages glued or sewn together. Now that's the simplified. Or it says, or it's a bound set of blank sheets for writing records. Now, to me, that's what I'm talking with you all about every day when I'm saying I hope you have a paper and pencil, that you have something to write some things about yourself on, things you might be thinking about based on the conversations that I put out here for thought, hoping that it certainly is resonating. But anyway, here it says, a book it could be a volume, meaning that volume 1 may be, childhood, volume 2 may be adolescence, volume 3, so forth and so on, all the way up. But anyway, it could be a publication or work. And I used to love this word, a treatise. I always use that word, a treatise, meaning it's a long, basically, story on something. Hopefully it's about yourself, but could be others. It could be a novel, a storybook, a guide, a companion. It could be a softback book, a yellow book, like the phone book, that kind of stuff. I don't have that much information. Could be a reference. All of those, a self-help book, all of those could be what books are to us. And if you all, how many of you all read books or currently are writing a book? If you are, write it in the thread there. So anyway, when we break the word down, we break it down. The B is for biography. And why did I pick biography? Because every day I'm talking to you, I'm hoping you are making notes for yourself and for anyone else who loves you, that because eventually we're all going to leave here. We're all going to leave, even if we don't want to. We may be kicking and screaming like we're being pulled out of our house, but eventually we will be pulled off our perch and we will be buried, or whatever way we decide that we're going to, our finalness will be, but there will be something going on. But anyway, when we talk about biography, it's an account of someone's life written by someone else or by themselves. It says it's life history. It could be your memoir, your profile. It could be an account of something, your bio. Okay? It says, or it can be the prosopography. I can't even say it. Prosopography of your life. Basically, it's talking about your story. Excuse me. What is your story? What is your story? So, I'm in the process of, completing Mr. Al Martin's second book. We did his children's book, which was a biography. Now we're working on his adult book. But I had to go to different resources. Excuse me. I don't know. Got a little frog in my throat. But I had to go to so many different resources that ultimately we ended up with over, I think I spoke with my 67th person yesterday. So when you're talking to people, you just let them talk, because that's the best stories that you're going to get. Let them talk. And so when I let people talk, sometimes I ended up with like an hour worth of things that I needed to end up going back through. That's why I needed to have the transcription, because if I didn't have that, it was just too much. It was too much for me to try to memorize and take notes on. Some I took notes on while I, also taped it, but I advised everybody before they started speaking that I had to tape them because I just couldn't write as fast as they could talk. So anyway, your biography, what's your life been like? What have you encountered throughout life? That would be whatever. It says water, sure. Oh, do I need water? No, it's gone now. I don't know where it came from. I don't know. Maybe from my sleep. But I've already had my coffee. I've had my breakfast. So I don't know where that came from. But it's gone. It's gone. Thank you, Maurice. Okay, the next word for O of book is origin. It says, an origin, of course, is something from which anything arises or is derived. It's the source. It's going to be the fountainhead. Where'd it come from? Your origin. We all had an origin. We were all born of a mother and father, even if we didn't know them and were given away at birth. It doesn't matter. We were still born. So we may not know our original origin, but then we ended up with what I call a nucleus family, or people who took care of us to get us to the point where we are now. And so that would be our origin. But then what happens after that? What happened before that? If we were to go back in our history, which I was talking about a minute ago, we're going to find out what went down, who was there. Even looking back through my own history, my father's last name, which we were given, is Gary, Gary. So I always kid about the fact as I wonder if I'm related to Willie Gary, because the name is a peculiar name. And most of the time when we lived in New York, it was always associated with the Caucasian race and not the black race in the northern portion of the country. However, I find in the South there are more people that have that name, Gary. But then when researching my own dad's history, I found several spellings of his name, Garry, Garie. I don't know how they came up with that, but just so many different spellings, which has you wondering, well, were we really a part of that or not? And when they did I think it was the 1930 census and the 1940 census, the 30 census, my dad was a young man, And, they had him there, but all the other people in the house, their names were different. All their names were Williams, and my dad's name was Gary. So we don't know what happened unless, and it looks like his mother married a Williams, but his name and his sister's name remained Gary. So, you never know how you ended up with your name or your ancestral background unless you dig into it and try to figure it out. Try to as best you can. But anyway, the origin looks at the ancestry or the ancestor, the influence, the motive, the connection, the element, the source, the provenance. All of those things speak to how we all kind of ended up being who we are as individuals. We ended up being that, which makes it okay that it doesn't matter what we've been through. What matters is what we're doing with where we are right now. That's what matters. But to leave history for others to not have to wander down in the wilderness about who they are, we can give the history from our way forward. Good morning, Trisha. We can do that. We can take something and what I call my mom used to say, put a skirt on it. We can put a skirt on it. We can put pants on it. We can put shoes on it. We can make it walk for the generation behind us or the generations behind us. Lissy Jones says, I practiced in the memoir writing class several years ago. It lasted approximately 3.5 years. Absolutely. Absolutely. I believe that. Some people get to looking into their backgrounds. They do it for many years, 10 years, 15 years. And they sometimes end up with what they call where they're stuck. They can't move any further. Because before, even in my family line, on my mother's side, we immediately move once you go from my mother's mother. My mother's mother, if I show you her picture, she looked like a white woman. And so we would get scared and ask my mother when she'd wash her hair or something, who's the white woman in the kitchen? My mother said, if you don't get your, now I'm going to tell you all she said, if you don't get your out of here. And we would get mixed up because we would see this woman, when we seen her regularly with her hair, she always combed it where she put a part down the middle, and she had a lot of hair, and she would braid it up on each side and then roll it. So that's the way we grew up with her, looking like that. But when she took it down, she looked like a totally different woman. And then her skin being so fair would scare us off. We were asking questions. But when I look back through my mother's lineage and to my grandmother, my grandmother's mother was called Lily, like my mother, and her last name was White. So we're just trying to weave through to find out, how do we get to this? How do you make sense of understanding lineage, and how do you leave that for others to know about? But pretty exciting stuff, when you think about it. But anyway, the next O of book is to observe. To me, we know who we are, but 2 generations down from you, do they know who you were? No, unless you leave something that allows them, some pictures, some words, basically some accounts of what it is you did, who you were, who you loved, what you didn't like, what you eat, all those kinds of things. That makes information passed down generation to generation, which makes it really good. So it says to observe is to see, to watch, to perceive, or notice. It says to regard with attention, especially as to see or learn something. That's what I want us to be able to do, that our children and our children's children's children will know about us. And if we've also looked back a little bit, then they'll also have that history. So to me, it's history being passed forward so that others know about the who you are. So it talks about to observe is to detect, to inspect, to regard, to scrutinize, to study, to recognize, to watch, and to monitor. All those things really speak to what, observing is. To observe something is to look at it, to pay attention to it. and hopefully that's what we're doing with our lives every day. Especially to me, pandemic has actually given a lot of people what I would call some insightful vision. Insightful, meaning they can take it, they can see it, they can work with it. Especially if you've had downtime, you can write things up. You can talk about how it made you feel, what it was to be, living, a different lifestyle, living lonely, living in fear, living in anguish, living in question. I don't know, with a big question mark. I don't know what's next. So all of that has to do with what we observe, and what we make note of, what we write down, what we keep track of. Those things are important. And the last word in our area book is knowledge. Only you know your own knowledge. You know it. You know your own story. Other people can add a little bit here and there, but you know what you've been through. You know what you've handled. You know what has been hurtful. You know what has been loving. You know what has been kind. You know what has been hateful. Because a lot of times we don't always talk about the things that have hated us or the people that have hated us. Okay, but they're there. They're evident. You can talk about a situation that probably you can not only, it would bring you to tears and it would bring someone else to knowledge that they know something that they did not know before. And it's something that's transferable, meaning they got it, they understood it, and they would look out for that happening in their lives and being able to pay attention to it. Because a lot of times we become what I would call, just myopic, straightforward. We don't look to our left or to our right. We just look straight. So we don't even ever look. We don't pan left or right. We just stay straight on. And sometimes other things are happening that are in our peripheral, but we never look that way. We never think that anybody would be this way or that way, but they are. People are people. They're just people. And the last area of the book is K. K is knowledge. Knowledge. This is facts and information and skills acquired by you, by this person that you are, through your experience, your education. It says your theoretical or your practical understanding of a subject. That is what knowledge is. And all of us are knowledgeable. We're knowledgeable about what we live through. We're knowledgeable about what we hope to do, what we plan, what we hurt from. We're knowledgeable. We know that. We know if somebody's hurt us, even if we don't ever say a thing. We know it. We know if somebody gives us joy every time we see them, even if we may say nothing. Good morning, Frank. Even if we say nothing, we know it. Okay? So when we talk about our knowledge, we're really talking about understanding, grasping what is going on, the mastery of what it is that we've learned. And some of the things that we've learned them so well that we could teach it in the dark. We could teach what we know to anybody. We could become teachers without going through the traditional model. Good morning, Jonathan. Without going through the traditional model of the structural process of learning to be an instructor, learning to be a teacher. Sometimes a teachable moment is, guess what? A teachable moment. You don't really need to have the structure or the oversight of an institution telling you that you need something. I think we as mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers and aunts and uncles and aunties, guess what? We're going to teach somebody something. It may be how we talk. It may be the walk you take. It may be dealing with life in spite of what you've been given. Okay, it may be understanding how having a little bit of money to go a long way is still doable, even though it may be heartfelt and difficult to do. But guess what? We do it. We absolutely do it. So anyway, also under knowledge, it talks about someone's expertise, somebody's skill level, somebody's proficiency. It talks about giving the lowdown on stuff and how we have this ability to form intelligence. We can form intelligence on anything. We can. but it has to be that we've studied it enough that we know it. We've made it our own. It talks about philosophy, learning. It talks about the enlightenment of something, and then the savoir faire. That would be just understanding that it's in you. You got it. You got it. You just understand. You know how to do it. Period. It's done. I remember, teaching in the classroom, and I remember my oversight teacher would always say, "How'd you know how to do all of this?" Some things I think are innate. I just do. I think they are innate. We just automatically know how to do things, and then we choose our subjects. If our subjects are in a position where they're ready to learn and they're willing to learn and they're asking you, they're ready. So the thing is to teach them. So when we talk about our book, it's our book. It's mine. It's yours. It's your book. I'm not asking you to do anything on me because you don't know all of my story. You don't know all I lived through and who's hurt me, who's loved me, we don't know any of that. So that's something that either we want to learn, and some things I had my pastor sometimes says some things will go with you to your grave. It is what it is. You're not going to delve into it anymore. It is. It's a life issue, and it's yours. It's yours to determine. But if any of you, I'm going to ask you some questions now. Here we go. You ready? Hope you have a pen and paper. I always ask you the same thing. Hope you have a pen and paper. Here's the first question. Have you ever considered about writing a book? If so, about what? Yourself, your family, a career, a trailblazer, someone else's biography? Write it in the thread. Have you ever considered it? And if you wrote a book, would it be a biography, a mystery, a self-help book? What would it be? What would it be? Question number 3. What is your origin, your heritage, and your lineage? What is it? It's your background. And all of these things lead to you being able to write a book. It all leads to that. Number 4, what have you observed that is written in a blog or a book or could possibly help others? Well, have you ever written anything in a blog that kind of confesses, this happened to me? This went down this way. This was horrible, whatever. And question number 5, what knowledge are you willing to let others know by way of a poem or a book? What knowledge? What would you use? Now, I'm hoping that is anybody going to write a book? Write it in there. Would anybody consider writing a short story? Because a short story makes it short. You can be done with it quickly. Has anybody ever been published with a poem, with a book? Anybody? And you can always self-publish, which is what I did for Al's 10 Fingers. I self-published. And incidentally, it still is doing very well on Amazon, and it's doing well personally, where we order the books, sign them, and send them out. So life is good. Life is good in that arena, which I probably wouldn't have even finished it as quickly as I was able to do if it hadn't been for pandemic, because pandemic just kind of settled me down. Marie says, yes, inspirations that I've been writing since high school. Instead, I would put them on Facebook. Oh, okay. Okay. The thing about Facebook, and even though it's memorable, you know, a lot of people memorize what you say. Good morning, Janice again. Uh, Even though it's on Facebook, you know, Facebook reaches a lot of people if you have a lot of friends. But you know what the difference between Facebook and putting it down in your own words, taking your time, writing what I call a creative path. Because you know you can put something on Facebook and you know apologize for a long note or message. Um, but the difference being is that you're waiting for response. When you write down your blog or your notes to yourself, and then you decide that you're going to form them into a book because you learned some things about yourself or you're passing on information, what happens is that you're not concerned when you're writing the book or you're writing this blog about what others may say. What happens is that you get a sense of empowerment, that you know this is your story. You have to tell it your way. These are the things that happened. This is how it happened. So though that's how you know they do those things, which makes it exciting. But Maurice, what I love about you is that you involve yourself in things so you can see your creativity on several levels. And you're younger. So younger people, I find, do a lot on social media. I'm forced to deal with social media more so than what I used to, only because the platforms have changed. You know, to get a letter in the mail is less likely than to get, you know, a note through Messenger, you know, or a message on your phone, a text message. So I've adapted, I've adjusted, and I find people that aren't adjusting well and aren't adapting will find themselves further behind. Let's see. It says, yes, I have been published in several books and put out by the African American Society of Pensacola. Yes, I know you have, Joan. Yes, and I love that I have the first volume, I think. And I've seen a lot of people have been published in the area, either locally or they've done some books on through Amazon, KDP, where they self-published, and they did well. They did well. They did very, very well. But anyway, that's my session today. Hoping that you all will certainly write a book, will certainly look at least continuing to take notes in my little sessions here that I have. And I tell you, I appreciate the fact that you scroll, that you stop, that you stay, and if you share it, child, I'm gonna have a party up in here. I love it when you share it, and it certainly makes for people to have an opportunity to see what you're seeing. And my prayer has always been that God is going to show me how to do it every day. And so far He has, where every day I come up with a topic that He told me I was going to do. And I wait for whatever happens during the course of a day, and that's how I pretty much set up my assignments to talk with you. But I want you to enjoy your day, be safe, consider writing a book, or at least some notations down on paper every day. And you know, as I said, you can get, I don't even have one in here, but you can get the little composition books, and I think they're only $1 in the dollar store, so you can get a couple of them. And you know, start out on a date, and every single day write something down that either inspired you, that you know shocked you, that hurt you, that you know was loved by you. All of those things collectively, that forms a story about you. But I do love you, and I hope I'll see you again tomorrow. And I thank you. Bye bye.